Just gonna make a quick cup of tea and then I'm gonna go live. I'm gonna make a quick cup of tea and then I'm gonna go live.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Gonna take.
You're gonna go live.
What?
I said you're gonna go live.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Etienne. Oh, shit.
Okay. Let's get this show started. So, for those watching, welcome to this live stream. It's a little bit rough and ready. I've still got to figure out how to make this look a little bit more slick and put countdown on there and stuff like that. So you'll have to bear with me just for the time being whilst I kind of get this ship up and running. This is the second live stream that I've done. The first one went surprisingly well, considering I sort of did it on the hoof, as it were. So welcome. For those who are watching, welcome. This is a live stream. My name's Jason Etienne. For those who don't know my channel or my work, worked for 10 years in the film industry, in the art department. Credits include Kick-Ass, Alexander, uncredited work on X-Men First Class. I now teach games art, and that's what I've been doing really for the last 5 years, and I'm currently teaching at Coventry University at the games art course there, which is fantastic. And here we are, and I do these little videos talking about drawing and concept art in general, about my experience, sharing my insights, and hopefully, you know, it'll be helpful for you as well. So let's just get straight into it. I've got a piece that I've created this week. Now, I was going to title this, in fact I might put it on the thumbnail post this live stream, Less is More. Less is More. So it's going to be really based around not so much about, let me just turn a bit of this volume down here just in case it's coming across a little bit too loud. It's going to be about creating a picture where you're saying a lot by saying very little. Very often, you know, when my students currently and in the past have been creating concept pieces for, you know, ideas for games, depending of course on what, you know, what's involved. But if you're just kind of at the stage where you just kind of wanted to do some initial designs and some concept art, it's very easy to go overboard. Excuse me. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is how you can actually suggest a lot of atmosphere, create a lot of, you know, almost like a narrative, but, you know, by not doing so much. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, but it's about not filling the scene. Now, I've done this before, but if I just go to the other tab here, I've done this in the form of like a photo bash. So if I just zoom in here, I've got a range of images. Now, just obviously give credit where credit's due. It's a great site called Pexels, where you get lots of free images. And just to kind of give the people who've taken the photographs credit, these kind individuals here have basically donated their photographs to the site. So that's a wonderful thing. And what I usually use photo bashing for is really photographs for photo bashing is really, you know, you want to sort of use these images as a starting point, not a destination. Yeah, always a starting point. So just using it as reference, of course, but also you're using it for the values. So you're not kind of trying to take that and use it as your own. You're not trying to take that and use it as your own. You're mainly using these images for the values, for the colours, you know, the use of light, and then you can sort of work into it. And that's how I created this. So basically, some of the, not all, but some of the photos on here. If I just zoom out a second. So yeah, so some of the photos on here that I've used, like that, for example, I used I used part of that. I kind of used part of that and then kind of worked into it. I think that might have been it. I think that was, yeah, I kind of intended to kind of use a lot more, but by the end of it, I kind of used very little. So again, less is more. So let's just get straight into it, yeah? So I'm going to create another document. And sorry if anyone does comment on this, by the way, please forgive me. I did have someone who was asking me questions whilst I was doing it, and I was a little bit slow the last time to catch up, but eventually I did, and I was able to answer questions. So if anyone watching does have any questions about their own practice and any insights that I can give, by all means, ask, yeah, and I'll answer the best way I can. This is about a kind of tutorial, but also this is an opportunity for you, the viewer, to ask me any questions about creating concert art. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to New, and in the little box here, I'm going to go to, well, I've already got it there, so I'm just going to do it at A4, double click on that. I'm going to change the orientation. Doesn't really matter at this point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the image size. So I'm going to take this from 300, I'm going to make it a bit more workable. So take it down to about 100. Otherwise you kind of get lag. I'm working on one of the latest MacBook Pros. And it's a good laptop, but it's even because I'm streaming and doing this, it can be a bit laggy. Next, I'm just going to use this shape tool here, and I could go to the lengths of making it exactly 16 by 9, but to be honest, I'm just going to work quite quickly on this and just create just a frame. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to create another layer. So I've got my layer there. You can name your layers if you like. You can call this, I can call this background for now, okay, or background 2. If you're using lots of layers, then it's a good idea to name your layers. I try and keep all the layers down, depending on what I'm doing, but generally I always try and kind of keep my layers really minimal, and if possible just down to 1. One of the reasons I do that is because sometimes you need to kind of like paint yourself into a corner, so to speak. You need to kind of narrow your own options down, and so if you make mistakes, then you live with those mistakes, and then you have to try and find a way around that. You'll find that if you do that, you'll develop more innovative ways to come at solutions to problems. Just depending on what you're doing. It's very easy to kind of like, with layers, they kind of act as a sort of safeguard. So if you make a mistake, you can just kind of drop the layer into the bin. But sometimes it's good to live with mistakes, because then you can build on those mistakes, yeah, instead of trying to make everything perfect. Anyway, let's press on. So I've got my layer, background 2. I'm going to start with the background. So always start with the background when you're working, if you're doing like landscapes and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the marquee tool, and I'm going to select this photo first. Okay, I'm just zoom in there just so you can see it. Okay, got all that selected. Just going to press Command or Control if you're on a PC. Control and C. Yeah, that's because I'm not on the actual layer. Let's just try that again. There we go. And we'll go to our project, and then Control and V. I'm going to put that in there like so. And I'm going to stretch this out. Now I'm going to keep referring back to the original image. So what I did here was, so I could kind of get an idea of the, I didn't want it looking like a photograph. I wanted to kind of boil the image down. So what I did was I used one of the filters, Artistic, and we can either use cutout or watercolor. I think in this instance I used watercolor. It's going to drag that up there. So I kind of got this nice boiling down of values. Yep. I can select OK. Next, I'm going to use the smudge tool. Now with the smudge tool, I managed to use I tend to kind of use the same brushes. If I just go to Window, sorry, brush presets, I'll just show you. Brush 14 is what I should be on, although it's not showing there at the moment. But you want to make sure that you got brush 14 selected, and that you're using shape dynamics and scattering. Yeah, make sure pen pressure's on both of those. Shape dynamics and scattering. Yeah, forget the rest. You know, make sure you just got a little bit of scatter on there. And what I'm going to do is I'll just keep it loose, right? I'm going to start just kind of work it. I've got like the general kind of cloud kind of stuff going on there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to sort of work into it, smudge it. So imagine you're kind of like just smudging it with your finger. This is paint, right? And so I'm changing it from what it was originally. Okay. Now at this point, you know, you want to be sort of not being too precious. Yeah. Treat it a little bit like abstract art. Try not to control it too much. It's kind of like control chaos, right? So when you're working on this stuff, there'll be the temptation to try and kind of be really precise and not make any mistakes. I may make some mistakes. It may go, you know, it may start to kind of go south when I'm doing this. But this, one of the reasons I'm doing these and wanting to kind of do more and more of these live streams is just to show you my practice, but also, you know, there will be things where it doesn't go wrong. Where it goes wrong when I want it to kind of go right. So it's just really about showing you how I get out of those holes, you know, as much as anything else. It's taking that risk. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Taking a risk when you're doing it. I think really good art comes from risk. Yeah. Oh, just had a little message from Kazmik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kazmik, thanks for joining us. Glad you're feeling inspired. It's really, really great to have you on board. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully this tutorial is going to be of use to you. So yeah. So yeah. I'm just going to up the ante a little bit with the strength on that. Okay, so again, just for anyone who might be just tuning into this, what we're doing is a bit of photo bashing. It's going through the process of creating a scene. So just go back to the original scene. This is kind of ultimately what we're looking to create, using photographs and also drawing as well. And I'm doing this by starting off with the background. So we're going to go background, midground, and then foreground. Okay. So I'm just going to smudge that out a little bit there. I can come back to this a little later. So always, you want to always be going from the general to the specific, not the specific to the general. Yep. One of the reasons for that is that if you start getting really specific at this stage, you're losing sight of, I mean, excuse the pun, but you're losing sight of the bigger picture, yeah, of what you're trying to achieve. The first stage is really just establishing the values, the structure of it, yeah. This is the same thing with, you know, I use traditional materials as well, like oils. Ah, Mr. Online Tutor. Excellent. I'm glad you're loving the photo bashing, my friend. Yes, yes. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you on board. Hope all is well with you. Right. Okay. So, now I've kind of got that kind of blocked out. So I'm just going to go refer back to the this original one now. So again, what I was doing here was I've kind of got, so this is the kind of stage we're at now. So if you just go back to that, we're getting close to that. But also you'll see there I've kind of added that kind of space scene. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to throw that into the mix. Think about it like a pot. You know, you're making a stew or something like that. And what you want to be doing is throwing everything into this pot and making a really kind of nice stew of kind of images. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the source material, and this time I'm going to press Control and D if you're on a PC, Command and D if you're on a Mac. I'm going to find that space image. There we go. And I'm going to copy that, paste that in there. Oops. And I'm going to sort of position that. Now I'm going to be taking part of this picture away, of course. Now I seem to recall, I'm just going to remind myself now. Yeah, that's right. So when I first created this that image, I used a function called multiply. It basically kind of it's a way of kind of getting rid of the background with a layer. So something's like sort of strong black and white, it'll take away the background and it'll reveal the image underneath. So from memory, I used that function, and then also what I did was I took the opacity down as well, so you can see there that's starting to kind of work, and I used the soft brush and taking the opacity down the soft brush. So what I'm doing is I'm going to start sort of taking away. Yep. I'm going to start taking part of that image away. I'm wanting to kind of create like a blend. Okay. So you can see there, it's quite, it's quite a nice effect. Oh dear, for some reason it jumped up then. Let me just go back a second. Let's try that again. Okay, well, that's kind of looking all right. We're getting some nice kind of colours going on there. And now what I want to do is I want to sort of start adding in a bit of kind of like a shimmer. So I imagine it's either kind of like, probably like, I'm guessing sunset. It's something like that, possibly, or something like that. So I'm going to start kind of drawing into this now. So I've got that going on. I'm going to switch back my brushes. And this time I'm going to, I'll just bring this up so you can see it. I'm going to select something like, you can select from the picture if you like. I'm just going to go into that, and what I'm going to do, because I don't really want to be drawing on that layer, I'm going to collapse if it'll allow me. Now sometimes it does a funny thing when you use multiply and you try and combine the layers. So let's just see if this works. I'm going to press Command and E. Ah, that's worked. Okay, that's good. Right, because sometimes I don't know, I've had problems with it before when you're just going down to a normal layer. So that's all looking good. And next I'm going to looks like I'm going to have to put the shape dynamics back on that. Is that working now? No, I'm going to have to put the dynamics back on it. See, this is, again, as I was saying earlier, this is why it's good for you to kind of see this in real time. So what's happened is it's kind of lost the preset, so I'm going to have to redo the presets, right? So it's a good opportunity to kind of show you now. So I'm on brush 14, I'm going to put the pen pressure on there, go to scattering, put the pen pressure on there, put a bit of scatter on there, we're locked and loaded, we're ready to go. So let's try that again. That's better. Now what I'm doing here is I'm holding down the shift key. Okay, holding down the shift key, and I'm just starting to kind of put that kind of shimmer in there. So, oops, let's go back again. It's going to show you on the original image. You can see there. So what I'm starting to do here is I'm just kind of laying it out. I'm going to start putting like a a bit of white in there, but for the time being I'm just going to keep it at that kind of yellow. So this is kind of like the horizon. Yep. And I might even use the smudge tool, so I'm switching to the smudge tool and just kind of blending that in there like so. So it's all well and good. And then I'm going to switch to the white. I'm going to start laying some of that in now. Yeah, so it just kind of, you want like a sort of point of intensity. I think one of the strengths of this, of this piece, if I do say so myself, but is this light. You kind of got this strong light, and then you kind of got the darkness. Yep. So I'm going to go back to that. Strong light. Might even just zoom in a little bit. I'm just going to take the opacity up there. And so again, I'm just going to kind of recap again. So we're having a go at photo bashing. This is the original image that we're using. This is just recapping for anyone who's just joining us. I'm using a combination of different images. These are all sourced from a website called Pexels. And these kind people here, they've all donated these images to Pexels. So as long as you name check them, they're happy for you to use these things. So I do advise you to kind of use, you know, what's the word? You know, where you got permission, you know, royalty free. That's it, royalty free kind of images, and with the kind permission of the original people. But again, we're only kind of using these really for the values, the colors and the values, really. Okay, so we've got that kind of going on there. I'm going to use a bit of the smudge tool now. Okay, and now I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go to the big brush. So I want to kind of start to kind of add this kind of haze, this flare. So I'm going to take the opacity down. Don't want it too strong. So I'm just taking it down to even like, well, about 12. And just adding that intensity. Can you see that? So it's already kind of adding this sort of kind of glare. I might just up the opacity a little bit. I might just take the size of the brush down. And again, so you can see there, it's just, you know, if we just compare it to the original, of course, you know, there's a bit of yellow in there as well, but it's just creating that kind of intensity. So again, I might just use that brush. Take the opacity down. So try and avoid, or you know, always try and avoid using sort of strong brushes, strong opacity. Just keep everything kind of loose, keep everything kind of low opacity. I'm just going to bump that back up again. Oops, that needs to be on white. Okay, so I don't want to kind of obsess on this too much. I can always kind of come back to this, but because, you know, as I was saying before, you know, we want to keep things really, really general, just for the time being. Keep it general, and then we can kind of come back to it. Right. So it's all looking good so far. We've got a nice kind of we've got a nice background coming on. We can work into that. So, you know, again, resist the temptation of kind of working into that too much. I want to start kind of now kind of putting this kind of sea in here. So basically, it's almost like imagine the kind of reflection of that. Now, a quick way of really doing that is you could just take that, take what you've done, say there. Could flip it. That could be one way. I didn't do it like this the last time, but let's have a go. I'm going to press Control C, Control V, and what I'm going to do is I'm pressing Control T, and then with my Wacom pen, I think it might be the right click or the left click on your mouse if you're doing it with a mouse. I'm going to flip vertically. Okay. Yeah. So you kind of create this mirror effect. Don't worry about, you know, again, I'm just doing this kind of rough and ready. And I didn't do it this way before, but we could do it this way. You know, you don't have to necessarily sort of stick with the script on these things. I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to use this thing called Motion Blur, which I'm sure probably most of you have used before. And Motion Blur is pretty cool because it's certainly good for doing like creating water and things like that. But you can also affect the degree to which you want to play around with that. So you can see there, you know, that's what it looks like normally. The moment, you can't see it there, but if I just move that up there we go. So you can see there, you can change the axis, yeah, as to which way you want to kind of do it. Now, because this is kind of going, you know, this is straight down. Imagine this water's quite tranquil. I'm going to, don't want to go too kind of crazy. Maybe something like that. Yeah, something like that. Let's go with that. Yeah, it gets nice kind of, yeah, it's almost like a lake, or, you know, the waters are very, very still. and then just sort of continue working into it. Yeah. Okay. And because I don't like having lots of layers, I'm going to collapse these layers down. I'm quite happy with that. Again, if you're not happy with it, don't change it down for the time being. Just leave it as is. Yeah, you don't necessarily follow everything that I'm doing. I'm just saying that this is the way I like to work. I like to kind of give myself now no option but to kind of work with this. But you know, it might not work for you. You might be a little bit more cautious about when you're creating stuff. So again, so okay, I'm just going to go back to and look at the original again. So right, so going to maybe think about working into this a little bit more. So the sea and the lake or whatever it is. So it could even be kind of part of an estuary. There could be more landmass beyond these points. Yeah. So it could be like, you know, where the sea meets the water coming away from the land. So, but it's probably more likely sea in this case. And so I'm going to, so let's just have a look there a second. Yeah, probably need a little bit more yellow in there. So I'm going to start adding some yellow in there. I might even just change the brush. I don't want to be too specific, at least not at the moment. It's a bit too strong, a little bit too strong. Let's just take that way down. So online media tutor. Okay, so you find it more difficult to recreate a piece that you've done before, like you're doing here, or creating a new piece from scratch? Yeah. See, that's a very good question. That's a very good question, because it's a bit like oh, I was talking about this the other day with you do lose a certain degree of magic when you create something for the first time. There's a certain amount of kind of magic that it has, and it is very, very difficult to recreate that. It's very, very true. You know, it's and I don't know why that is. It could be because, well, I've thought about this before, and I think it's one of the reasons is, for me personally, it's a bit like when you're creating, and forgive me if I kind of sound a little bit kind of, you know, sound a bit mystical, but it's like you're on a journey. You're going on a journey when you're creating a piece, and you don't know what's around the corner. You literally don't know what's going to happen, but the journey and the story is kind of, it's all happening in real time when you're doing it. So the story has lots of twists and turns, and you can almost see, when you're looking at pieces of art, you can see where the artist is going on a journey, as it were. When you're recreating it, it's like going down the same journey. And when you go down the same journey, it can be like, it's still like interesting, but it's like you kind of know what's around every corner, and yeah, you might take a different turn, but ultimately you know kind of where you're heading. And there's that kind of, I think it's the anticipation when you're creating works is what adds to the magic. I think that's another thing as well. It's the anticipation, because you're creating it, like you're looking at this now and thinking, okay, you know, and if I had to shown you this, for example, if I had to shown you that and you were just seeing this, you'd be thinking, where's this going? Where's it gonna go? I mean, like, it's stuff that I watch online. Like if I watch oh goodness, watch like Feng Zhu on FZD School, or even someone like Bob Ross. You know, I mean, you know, he goes a bit OTT, or you know, on his videos. But one of the nice things about, like, you know, looking at his stuff is like you just think, where's he going with this? You know, and you know, it's but it's the kind of, there's a journey kind of quality about it anyway. So answer to the question, yes, it's quite difficult. It's quite difficult recreating stuff again. It's difficult creating stuff anyway, but it is once you're kind of going down that once you're making that journey again, it's not like it's not interesting, but it's just got a different kind of quality, really. Anyway, I hope that answers your question. Right, okay. Yeah, Bob Ross. No. Little, what is it? What is it? What's that catchphrase? What is it? Friendly clouds. It was a little friendly clouds. It's great. Love Bob Ross. Fantastic. Right. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting some land in. Okay. So I'm going to start putting some of these land. Now, how I did this before was I was using the lasso tool, and again, just kind of, you've got to be thinking also as when you're creating concept art is just be thinking about composition and balance. Yeah, I talked a little bit like this in the last live stream I did about the golden rule, golden ratio, rule of thirds, and maybe I'll dip into that at some point in the future. But it's about kind of composition. Think about, like, in another kind of weird way, think about, like, say when you're tidying up your room, or you're redoing your room, you're moving your bed, perhaps a bedroom or a living room, you're moving objects around, you're doing that in a pleasing way. Yeah, everything has to have a kind of an aesthetic. Yeah, and so pictures are no different in that respect. You're moving all these different kind of assets in a way, like the clouds are an asset, the land could be an asset, the character's an asset, the rock's an asset, and it's how you move them which is kind of pleasing. And you certainly don't want to be putting, like, say for example, that character smack bang in the middle of a picture. I had a student, great student, at Coventry. He does lovely kind of sci-fi, kind of fantasy pieces, and he was tending to kind of put the characters though smack bang in the center of the picture, and I was like, no, you always offset it, because it's about nature, because nature's off balance. So you need to be always thinking about trying to reflect nature in what you're doing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start dropping in some land. So I'm going to create my other layer. I could call this land. I mean, again, if it helps, so you don't get mixed up. Call that land. We'll call this background. Again, I'm not going to be using many layers, so don't worry. So on land, I'm going to use this, and just don't be too precious. Just kind of put everything in there, and then I'm going to use so I've completed that. Now I'm going to use the gradient tool. I'm going to select black, and I'm just going to drag down into that, and put something like that. Press Ctrl and D, and then using the smudge tool, I'm going to just kind of soften that out here. Okay. Now when I did this before, it was quite loose, and I kind of drew over it. I quite like the kind of roughness. It's not like entirely polished. We'll see how this comes out this time round, but I'm just going to. This may indeed kind of turn out to be. It will be different anyway. You can never, as an online media tutor was, asking the question about, does it? I forget the question again. Recreating a piece that I've done before. Is it more difficult? And in a sense, it is, and it's never the same. It's got a different kind of personality in a way. So, yeah, I'm just smudging that out. Like so. Again, I'm just trying to resist getting too deep into this. I might even, let's just see about reducing the opacity a little bit. So I take that opacity down. I don't want it too strong. And I'm going to use the lasso tool again. So again, it's going to go back to the original. So you see, I've got two parts of the kind of land coming in there, and then some on the other side. So I'm going to do some on the other side now. And I can mess them up afterwards. So a little bit there. Again, you don't have to be too specific. Take that back and then off, and then let go. And then I'm going to use the gradient tool again, and I'm going to do a few drop down bits on there, and then using the smudge tool again, just going to soften that. Again, I don't want to get too much into it, but I just wanted to soften that up. Because also you don't want things, you know, it's obviously like photography, right? You don't want stuff that's in focus, you know. This wants to be soft. You know, you can make the character in focus, yeah. You want to at least kind of create a slight kind of depth of field about this, yeah. You don't want you don't want everything. I might do something at the end of this as well to kind of create a false sense of depth, but I'll come to that a little bit later. Now, just working in there. Okay, and I'm going to drop another one in there as well. Little slither of land. And use the gradient tool. And then the smudge tool. So a lot of this is, when you're doing stuff like this, a lot of it is repetition. Yeah, you're not doing, you know, it's almost a bit like labouring work. You know, you're just kind of stacking, you know, it's like building a brick wall or something. You know, you kind of, a lot of it is just, once you've kind of got the idea, a lot of it can be just like, it's just labouring work. You're just kind of putting all the details in. And also, and this is something you've got to look out for, don't burn out. Don't exhaust yourself with this stuff. Because that's another thing. It's a trap that I used to fall into, particularly when I first started doing these videos. I started trying to kind of like, okay, I'm going to create a picture from beginning to end and it's going to be amazing. And it's like, no. You get fatigued. You start making mistakes. You just get tired. And you don't want to fall into that trap. And depending on the level of detail you want, you know, sometimes it's good just to walk away. You know, put like an hour in, go and make a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Go and do something else. You know, go for a walk. I don't know, go running. Just kind of just freshen yourself up. And then when you come back to it, you're renewed. Yeah, you're renewed and you're kind of ready to kind of have another go at it. But certainly, you know, trying to kind of like go the route of I'm not going to, you know, leave this seat until it's all completed. It's like, maybe some people can work that way. I can't. I tend to kind of get a little bit tired. Anyway, a bit more land. Drop that in there. And using the smudge tool again. So again, just really blocking this in. Just blocking things in. Okay. Well, that's starting to kind of, that's really starting to kind of come together now. Okay. So I'm perhaps ready to put just a few more details in there. I'm going to switch brushes. Go back to brush 14. And take the brush size down. And just add some. Now, what are these? What am I doing here? Well, it's just kind of abstract, really. They could literally be anything. It could be structures. It could be, you know, it could be like an old port or something. These could be like, they could be masts to ships. It could just be debris. It could be stuff that's kind of been washed up. Who knows, right? It's just kind of meant to be a kind of, again, I'm coming back to that word again, pareidolia, which I think I've mentioned before. I've done a tutorial on this. This is where the human, what happens is, pareidolia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, pareidolia, it's where the human brain basically tries to recognize objects. We've, you know, evolved to recognize objects. So classic example, you'll see like a front door, and it has like, it'll have two windows, and it'll have like a door knocker in the middle, just below the two windows, and then letterbox below that. It'll look like a face, right? That's pareidolia. What you do is you look at that and you think face, and it's funny and it's humorous, right? But what's going on, again, I'm not an expert, but you know, my limited understanding is that what's happening is your brain's got a kind of pattern recognition system already like inbuilt. It's already hardwired in there since time immemorial. And so when we see, it's a bit like looking at clouds, right? You look at a cloud and it kind of looks like a rabbit, or it might look like a face. Yeah, that's pareidolia. But it does work in other ways as well. So when you're doing stuff like this, even though I'm kind of creating, which actually fairly just random, just kind of maybe even a bit messy, a bit like, what's this? What, I don't understand. What's that? Well, you don't necessarily have to kind of get it. But what we're doing here is we're sort of creating some shapes, and even if you're creating this stuff, you may not recognize it yourself. When you kind of squint your eyes and then you kind of maybe have a look, or if someone else kind of looks at these things, it's a suggestion of something, and their brains and your brain should kind of like your brain wants to recognize things. So by doing kind of random images, it wants to kind of piece it together. And of course, you don't want to go totally crazy. You don't want to start kind of doing, I'll put that in there and that's going to like something. Of course, no. It's about building on the structure that you've already created and creating a suggestion. So in my mind, say for example, when I'm creating this, I'm putting these kind of like random, slithers of kind of like of lines in there as a way to suggest that these are structures. This could be, I don't know, these could be part of kind of villages or something, along the coast, fishing villages or something like that. I've not put houses, I've not put huts in there. They're just kind of lines. But I think, well, hopefully you'll agree. If you kind of just pull back from the monitor and just kind of squint your eyes and just have a look at that, or even if you don't squint your eyes, you can see that it's a suggestion of something. Anyway, so that's all looking good. I'm going to go back to the original now. So I think it's about time to start bringing in a bit of land. So this is going to be the perch for our character. Right. Okay. So what I chose for that originally was this bit of photograph here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take part of that out. You don't have to, again, I'm just using this really for the values, for the colors. I'm going to work into it, and also reference, right? So online media tutor, you see trees on the right. Yeah, trees, could be trees. Let me just copy that first. Let's go back. Yeah, exactly, yeah, kind of trees, maybe like it's like, trees that have maybe even been sort of stripped away. They may, who knows, right? But a suggestion of something. Okay. Now, time to drop the rock in there. And I'm going to change brushes. I'm going to go to brush 14. And I'm just going to, again, just take part of that sky out. I'm not going to be too precious about it. Right, I'm going to sort of drop it in place now. So something like, well, first of all, I'm going to sort of shrink that down a little bit. Okay. Now, yeah, okay, so something like that. So let's drop that down into there, say. Again, I'm not going to be too pedantic about it. I'm not going to make it exactly like the original, but something like that. And I'm going to use that artistic filter again. Oh, better zoom out a little bit. Well, it's just a bit of a blob, really. Now, you know what? I might actually go with dry brush on this. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. For the time being, I'm going to OK that. It just seemed to kind of get obliterated a little bit. So now, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to start working into this. So this thing is like supposed to be a kind of perch. Yeah, so what I'm doing at the moment here is I'm just kind of trying to get a feel. I'm just kind of blocking it in. I may even drop another photo on here. I just want to get the right shape. At the moment it's not quite happening, so it's something like I might just use the warp tool perhaps. Pull it about a little bit until I kind of get the shape that I want. Again, go back to the smudge tool. Okay. I'm going to keep this on a separate layer because this is where, in until you're kind of really happy with something, you want to kind of keep it separate until you're like, yeah, I'm good with this, and then maybe you want to put it onto another layer. Okay. So I want this as a kind of, now one of the things I like about the original is this, it's almost like a plinth. It's kind of a bit of rock. One of the things I liked about it, and this is purely accidental, is that it was almost as a bit like, you know, other travelers have kind of come to this part here and they've stood in exactly the same point, you know, it's kind of worn it down. So you've got these sedimentary layers and the rock, but it's kind of been worn down, almost like steps. And I quite like that. And that was purely accidental. I want to see if I can kind of recreate something of that with this. So I'm going to, again, just kind of work into that. Now I may drop another photograph on there, just again, as much as anything else, just for a bit of reference. We'll see how we go. Okay. We shall see. Mind you, that's coming together pretty well so far. So again, I've just kind of got this. Well, I'm sort of doing it almost like, oh goodness, those I don't know if you ever did it at school. Those contour maps, you know, where you kind of do like a landmass. So it's a bit like that. You're kind of doing these sedimentary layers, but it's kind of like it's kind of waving. It's kind of arcing out as it kind of goes along. Well, that's kind of looking. That's actually looking all right at the moment. I might just let's have a look. Might use part of that. Let's see how we do. Put that into it. I'm just going to try something now. I'm going to try and see if I can, let's go multiply, and then I'll drag the other one underneath. It's a little bit dark. I might just, first of all, I'm going to put the dry brush on it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Command and New. No, I'm going to press, yeah, I'm going to go to exposure actually, there's not a quick key for that. And I'm just going to see if I can just make this a little bit lighter, if possible. Again, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I'm just going to try it out. Again, this is part of the reason why I'm doing this, is just so you can, you know, you can learn from my mistakes as well as, you know, my successes, as it were. Right. Maybe not that then. Maybe I will go to Control and U. So Control and U is like the hue and saturation. I might just see about lightening it up a little bit. Not quite again. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might be. No, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stick with that, and I'm just going to sample the colour. I'll sample from the original and I'll just draw into it. I'll take it off, multiply, turn it back into a normal layer. And I'm just going to work into it now. Not too much, obviously, I'm just aware of time. I'm sure it being well, it's a Friday night where I am. I don't know where the rest of you are from. I'm sure one person, I know online media tutor is in the UK. I'm not sure where you other guys are, but anyway, it's Friday night here, so this is how I spend my evenings. Yeah, rock and roll. Right. Okay, so basically, I'm just going to. But yeah, I was going to say I don't want to make this video too long because I'm sure You've probably got a good movie that you wanted to watch or a game that you wanted to play. Okay, I'll work into that a little bit more. Right. Right, and just put maybe some highlights on there. Let's have a look. Okay. So again, you got to think about where the light's coming from. So a lot of this is going to be in darkness. Okay. So what I might do is just contain that, and I'm going to use the gradient tool again. Okay, just to, yeah. There we go. So it's just really just to give a bit of kind of realism to it. All right. Again, I could continue working into this, but I think just for the purposes of this video, again, like if we just go back to the original, you know, spent quite a bit of time on that, and I could spend a bit more time on this, but I think just for the time being, just for this video, I just want to kind of keep it as brief as I can. I'm just going to go back a sec. Right. So it's just suggestions of grass going on here. Okay. All right. So you got like so basically you got the foreground now, yeah. So you've got a suggestion of foreground, and sure, you can kind of work into this a little bit more, of course. I'm just going to just add a bit of a kind of highlight, so it's just kind of catching that light from there. Yep. It's where our character is going to be stood. Let's go back to black. Okay. Right. So about ready to kind of drop the character in, really. All right. Just going to change things up a little bit. Again, you know, feel free, if you've got any questions, now's the time to ask. So just feel free to jump in at any point. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced by that. I might just take that down a little bit. Okay, so character. All right. So I'm going to drop another layer on there. I'm going to call this. Oh, cancel that. I'm going to call this, surprisingly, character. And before I go any further, you know what? I'm just going to go, what the hell? Yeah, I'm just going to collapse these layers down. I'm going to nail my colours to the mast, as it were. All right. So that's now part of that. That's part of the background now. There's no going back. There's no going back now. I'm stuck with it. Right. Okay. Okay. Character. So again, this character I put in here is kind of like a nomad. It's kind of like a space-age nomad kind of. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Right. I'm picturing for this character is kind of like possibly space nomad or spiritual kind of like sage type character in a spacesuit. So something perhaps closer to a kind of like nomadic, spiritual warrior kind of character. You've got the suggestion of a kind of helmet there and some kind of breathing apparatus or some kind of backpack. Who knows, right? And a kind of cloak and this kind of staff with this kind of glowing kind of egg on the end there. That's it. That's pretty much it. And some other, just a suggestion of something again going on there. So now the beauty of when you're working on layers is you can actually, although I'm going to shrink the character, I'm going to work a little bit larger. I want to kind of like at least just kind of get let's take that down for a minute. There we go. Yeah, just want a kind of suggestion of the figure. So again, a bit like with the background, don't go too overboard. Just kind of get the details in first. Don't get the details in. Get the general stuff in first, then put the details in. Yeah, not the other way around. Just resist the temptation there to put in. So I'm going to shrink this down. It's not going to be the actual size. I'm working large, just so I can kind of get some more detail in there. So I've kind of got the main body, and then there's a kind of his leg coming down there. That's one. And he's kind of like he's taking a step or something like that. And so you got his other foot kind of there. Okay. Might just increase the opacity a little bit. Okay. And he's kind of got this cloak kind of blowing in the wind. Yeah. So once you've kind of got it all kind of blocked out just, you know, loosely. Then I'm going to use this smudge tool. I mean, this is one of my favorite tools with Photoshop. And I'm just going to use this to kind of just start blending parts of this together. I just like it because it kind of just softens edges, and it starts to kind of give me an idea, and it also brings in part of the background as well. So it's almost like you're able to, yeah, you're able to kind of like bring, kind of, it's like what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of bringing in the light of the surroundings. Yeah, it's not just solid black. So that's part of the reason why I use the smudge tool. Okay. So again, I'm going to shrink this down. I might just shrink it down now. And what I might also do is, so I'm going to shrink it down, but, so I've been working at about 100 pixels on this. I'm now going to bump it up to, let's take it up to about 200 pixels. Okay. Also, just for added measure, I'm going to save as, and I'm just going to call this tutorial YouTube. Okay, just in case it all goes wrong. Right. So I bumped it up. So now I can start putting in a bit more detail. Yeah. So I'm going to use that tool there, and then just basically, again, it's just more of an impression. We're not talking about creating, you know, it's not like photorealism. And I've mentioned before in previous tutorials, you know, when it's certainly in my experience, you know, when I used to work in the industry, but also I know from talking to people from the games industry as well, you know, people that I know, you know, you don't have the time to be putting in masses of detail. You know, I know it was the same in, you know, as in film. You know, all the, you know, I worked alongside, you know, some of the best concept artists working in the industry, you know, and they churn stuff out. You just see how fast they churn stuff out, because they didn't have that luxury of time, because they'd be meeting up with the director or the production designer. Yeah, so it'd be like, okay, can you do this? We need it ready for, you got a presentation this afternoon, so they literally got to work up something from scratch. You don't have the time. So whenever you look at, like, you know, the art of books, you know, any ones that you can think of, you know, like, I mean, you do get some. What did I pick up recently? Was The Art of Dishonored 2, what it was, Dishonored, and amazing, beautiful artwork, and there's some very, like, well rendered stuff. I imagine that kind of concept work was perhaps done very early on in the project, but when it gets going, things get, you know, can get a lot looser, because you're up against the clock, as it were. Okay. Moving along. So, welcome to those who have just recently joined us. And just to recap, we're doing a bit of photo bashing. So, I've been creating this background, and I've got this kind of like land kind of coming in here. So, it's almost like an estuary, or possibly like a port. I've been using these images as sources, yeah. And I've been using a site called Pexels, and we've got some. The photographs that have been used have been taken by these kind people here, so I'm just name checking them just so you can see, but mainly just using it for the values. Yeah, it's kind of values, reference, and color. Yeah, so just kind of getting the sense of the lighting and all that kind of stuff, and then basically putting it into a concept scene. So a lot of concept art is going this way. There's an article I came across recently. It was called something like "Concept Art is Dead," and obviously it's not dead, you know. But it was just talking about the traditional ways of doing things, of almost, they still exist, but but designers are now, concept artists are now using 3D a lot more. They're using photo bashing a lot more, and it's mainly for expediency. It's for time. Yeah, you get quick results. You can get some fabulous results. And who can deny it? If you're taking images, you're taking photographs, but you're reworking them into something else. I was looking at, what was it? The Art of Valerian. Picked that up just recently, and amazing. I think Feng Zhu's in there as well. He got hired as a concept artist for that, and some amazing stuff in there. But I can see, there's a lot of stuff in there. You're like, yeah, you can see there's a photograph in there. So it's pretty much a standard thing now. So concept art isn't dead, but certainly the traditional route of literally starting from scratch with a painting, that seems to still exist. But when you're on productions, it's all about time. Anyway, enough yammering. I'm just going to start trying to. Okay, I'm going to start trying to work into this now. So I'm going to start trying to work into the folds on the cloak. Now again, it's good to kind of look at reference for stuff like this. I'm sort of I'm doing part of this through memory. So I've kind of, I have done cloth before, but it's always good just to kind of have a bit of reference, just so you know what, how things hang. Take the brush down a little bit. Use that brush again. Again, so I'm just trying to really just give a suggestion. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more now. Perhaps not so much. I might actually take it up to 300. So image size. I just want to kind of dig into that detail a little bit. Okay, just give it a second. Okay. Just zoom out a little bit. Right. Okay. So this is where you could perhaps spend a bit more. Again, I'm going to try not to spend too much time on this, but certainly, for your own practice, this is where, because this essentially what you're looking at here is you've got the nice surroundings, but this is going to be essentially the star of the show. This is going to be where the focus is. Yeah. This is where this is where the focus is for your piece. So again, this is where I'm just kind of bitting and bobbing really. I'm just playing around a little bit, doing a bit of smudging. So I'm just going to go quiet for a while and just try and focus in and get this right. Okay, so it's slowly sort of starting to come together now. So what I'm doing here at the moment, he's got his kind of like space helmet thing on. I'm just going to use this, so holding down shift and using this marquee tool, I just want to make a suggestion of a sort of space helmet. Okay. Again, you know, don't be too precious about it. You can just sort of work into it. There we go. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, it's starting to kind of come together now. Oh yes, I was going to take care of that. So with this kind of panel on the back, so this is some kind of breathing apparatus type thing, and it's plugged into. I'm going to change the brush on that. So I'm going to use a soft brush. I'm going to kind of create this glow. Yeah. Take that down a little bit. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's go back to my regular brush. So just a lot of going back and forth. I don't know how you work, but I just tend to kind of like flit around, as it were. I tend to kind of go from one thing, go to another thing, go to another thing. Excuse me, and just play. Really, I think that's really it. It's just kind of finding that kind of happy medium. And so I tend to kind of flirt around a lot and go from one thing, go to another thing, and you know, you won't find me kind of spending a lot of time just working on an arm, for example. It tends to be a lot of different things. Okay. Right. So we're getting close. We are getting close to finishing. Now, what is finished? You know, well, someone asked me the other day. They said, you know, about knowing where to stop, as it were. You know, when do you know that you're kind of finished? And that's a really tricky thing to answer and to do sometimes. I mean, it's just what feels right, really. It depends what you're going for. So with pieces like this is an impression, if anything else. It's not like excuse me, a lot of the stuff that you might see online, which is very, you know, it's highly detailed and quite dense in detail. You know, you see a lot of this, particularly with the 3D stuff. You know, people working in 3D Coat or ZBrush or whatever, and doing that kind of like, you know, hard surface type rendering. You know, it's all just, you know, very, very precise, and you know, it'll be some kind of like combat kind of droid, and it'll have lots of kind of, you know, they'll be using a lot of you know, physics-based rendering, and you know, it just looks really, really, you know, amazing. If you're going for stuff like that, then that's absolutely cool. But with stuff like this, there's more of a it's more of an impression. It's less on the detail. Yeah. So I would say, you know, if you're ever thinking, oh, you know, when do I stop with a piece? It's just like, well, you know, you're just really creating an impression. You can always kind of go back and work on stuff, but you'll know when the time's right, and you just bring it to a close. Okay. Just creating a little drop shadow down there. almost forgot about his staff. So let's have a go at that in a minute. I'm just going to create a bit of bleed, so around here, so you can see where this part of the sunset, whatever it is, there. But of course, what you find is you get this in photography, but also in classical painters, where you'll see where the character is. If they're in the sort of direct line of this kind of light, then what you can end up with is a lot of bleed. Yeah, so you're going to get this kind of thing going on. Yeah, I can't remember the exact term, but basically when you kind of get like, it's almost like the exposure you got. This is just saturating, so the lens on the camera would be opened up, or whatever it is, not opened up, but kind of closed down for that, because it's quite bright. But this character will get caught up in that. So that's why when you're doing stuff like this, you want to kind of at least just give a suggestion. We're not going for realism here, but just a sort of suggestion of some kind of realism. But this is starting to kind of come to a close now. If anyone has, or if anyone's kind of watching this after the live stream, you want to ask me some questions regarding this or anything else, absolutely feel free to get in touch. I'm doing this because I love doing it. I love sharing knowledge. This is why I teach. This is why I teach this, this stuff and other stuff. Is I love connecting with people and sharing ideas and things like that. So if you've got any questions, if I don't get back to you immediately, I will eventually get back to you. But now is a good time, because we've finished term now. All my students have gone back home, so I do have a little bit of time between now and September to do some more of these tutorials. So yeah, but yeah, come September, it's going to get crazy again. So I will be trying to kind of find a bit more time to do this. But apart from that, I'm just going to have a look at that. Yeah, again, I could kind of continue working into this. I think we've done pretty well. There's a lot more that could be done, for sure. Once you kind of got to something like this, absolutely, you could drill down into this even more and put a lot more detail. So, for example, I could put more into the rock. I mean, I could even model something. I could even do something in ZBrush, and then kind of put that in there, and I could maybe even get some material and start bashing that into there, and ditto with his little backpack. But again, it's probably not necessary, to be honest. It's got its own charm. And you're just creating an impression, particularly if the early stages of a project and you're just trying to kind of get ideas for things, there's no real need to kind of go into that level of detail. It's only, I think, when you're getting to the point where you're, excuse me, when you're looking at, sorry, he's going to take a drink of tea. When you're looking at stuff for modeling. So if you're doing like a group project and you're the concept artist and you get someone else who's doing the modeling, then yeah, you'd want to kind of something with a bit more detail. Like this character, for example, you'd probably flesh that out a little bit more. You probably do a front, side and back view, maybe have it in a T-pose. You might model it in Maya, or you might be working in Maya and 3D Coat, or in ZBrush, or all of the above. And that's where you're going into more detail. But when you're at this stage, it's just about really having fun and just daydreaming. This is a daydream. Yeah, you're just really having a bit of fun, seeing where your imagination takes you. Anyway, I think this brings us to the close of the tutorial. So yeah, I'm going to see if I can do another one over the weekend. If not, it might be next week. But for everyone who's been watching, really thanks for tuning in. And I hope you've been enjoying the the tutorial. Be sure to give us a like. Be sure to subscribe if you've not subscribed already. And any questions, as I mentioned before, drop it in the comment section below. I will try and get back to you as soon as. But that's it. I hope wherever you are, you're having a lovely time. It's evening time over here in the UK, so it's a lovely, balmy summer evening. So I'm now going to go and relax and probably go and watch a movie. So yeah, hope you have a nice time too. So until next time, folks. Thanks for watching. All the best. Take care, and look forward to seeing you next time. Okay, thanks for watching.